Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 870. Arsenal are champions, but not the best. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Eddie. Well, we're going to have to talk about some Arsenal finally raising the trophy again. But I guess first, before we get into the downside, Eddie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Obviously, slightly disappointed. I'm not disappointed, to just clarify, that Arsenal won the Premier League. But as we spoke about throughout this season,
Oh,
the
you
fact
are.
that no, I'm honestly not. There's reasons why I still don't think they're the best team in England, regardless of what has happened over the course of this Premier League season. I don't think they're the best team in Europe, regardless of what happens in the Champions League final. So, but that doesn't matter. The best team doesn't always win either of those competitions. And that's fine. But I'm disappointed as a neutral that, a couple weeks ago, it really looked like we were going to get a sort of titanic final day clash where goal difference, you could have been in a scenario of just teams trying to, City have scored 4, we need to get a 5th, that kind of scenario. And it just ended in a complete whimper with we go down to the final day of the season and nothing's up for grabs.
Well, yeah, I feel like it ended how City played all year with just terrible defending and allowing a lot of opportunities.
In a way, you could say that the last month of the season has actually been a good representation of this season as a whole, which is we saw City and Arsenal play each other. City are better.
Yeah.
There's little doubt in my mind that the best version of City is better than the best version of Arsenal. They've played each other 3 times this season. Arsenal didn't win a single match. City won 2 and drew 1. And then City just slip up more in places that you wouldn't expect them to, and in ways they can be comfortable. And like we saw against Everton, they were quite comfortable, and then all of a sudden they were 3-1 down, and then they fought back really well.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, like, why did you have that 30-minute blip where you suddenly forgot how to play football? Or you see yesterday against Bournemouth where the 1-1 draw flattered them. I mean, Bournemouth had a handful of great chances to score a second goal late on, but even prior to that, Bournemouth were probably the better team on balance of play. So, Arsenal in that sense have been the more consistent team. But then also within that period, we've seen the other sort of part of the narrative, which is Arsenal winning matches, but definitely benefiting from, let's say, even 50-50 decisions going their way, but oftentimes not 50-50. So the Kai Havertz not getting a red card 2 nights ago, or the West Ham penalty decision, or Gabriel not getting sent off against City. We've seen all of this. This last month has really shown us what the whole season's been like. And on the balance, I guess you could say Arsenal deserving Premier League champions, but kind of underwhelming Premier League champions.
Yeah. It's really boring when the champion is just like due to consistency. It's like were they the best team? No, they were just really consistent. That's like never a flattering phrase, kind of no matter how you really say it in terms of like when you want to be the winner or the best at something. It's like, well, he's not the best. They're just like, he's really consistent at what he does. Like it's such a neutral term.
But then ultimately here the other issue is too, is like I would admire the consistency more if it also hadn't involved quite a bit of good luck. Because we can say they've been like we can say, wow, they like they lost to City and then they just ran off wins. They did, but then they should have been down to 10 men against Burnley with 25 minutes to go, which they may well still have held on to their 1-0 lead, but that could have been the slip up that swung the Premier League title back in City's favor. They find a late winner against West Ham, and you can go, that's what good teams do. They don't play great, they find late winners, but then they also should have conceded a late equalizer, and they don't because, again, and they play against City, and you could say damage limitation, they only lose by a goal. But then Gabriel should have been sent off. And what would have the implications of that, them, the strongest part of Arsenal's team, and we've really seen that down the stretch. They've been nervous. They haven't scored a lot of goals. They've relied on keeping clean sheets. How different would that have looked had Gabriel been suspended for 3 matches? All of these things. And then on top of it too, and then this falls completely outside of their control and City's control, you can kind of say they just got lucky with how all the fixtures played out. That they played City head to head, and then City caught up on games in hand, but then immediately fell back behind because of FA Cup fixtures. And that's even when City were level, kind of technically, they never were able to get level on points because they always had more games to play. And there was this kind of bottleneck towards the back end of the season for City from a fixture list perspective. And again, that's not Arsenal's fault, or nor is it was their planning or their doing. And so I don't want, I get it if you're an Arsenal supporter and you're listening to this, it sounds like sour grapes. It kind of is. But what bothers me, also, I speak to a lot of, I have several friends in my life who are Arsenal supporters. And living in Paris, Arsenal are a very popular team here because of how many French players and Arsene Wenger as the manager there were in the early 2000s. So they're probably the most popular English team in Paris, I would say, overall. I have no problem. Arsenal supporters are allowed to be biased and subjective in terms of how they think about their team. I don't have to be, though. And I don't have to listen to your reasonings as to why Arsenal are actually the best team and accept them because you're a fan. It doesn't mean that you know more just because you happen to watch maybe. I would dispute that I probably watch as many Arsenal matches and minutes as most Arsenal supporters. But, regardless, there is this sort of, I'm allowed to be, you're allowed to be completely subjective as a supporter, but it doesn't mean that I have to
doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah, I don't have to sort of, it doesn't add extra credence to the argument because I'm a supporter, so I'm allowed to be irrational. It's I can acknowledge that you're being irrational. I'll acknowledge that you are being irrational, and then we can accept that I'm probably right. That's the way I want that conversation to go.
Yeah, that's the Larry David rule.
Kind of. And I had this. I was speaking to yesterday in the bar, and I said, to me, Arsenal are the second best team in the Premier League, and they're the fifth, sixth best team in Europe. And how can you say that, Eddie? They won the Premier League. Okay, so when Leicester City won the Premier League, were they the best team in England? That's a hill you want to die on. That year, you can say they're deserving champions or whatever, but they are the best team. As in, if that season they'd gone head to head with City or Chelsea or whoever it had been, and you had to bet your life on who was going to come out in that leg, you would have gone Leicester, best team, champions, no chance. And then, so there was that. And then I said, and what about Europe? They said, I think PSG are better than them. I think Bayern Munich are better than them. I obviously think Manchester City are better than them because I think they're better in England. So they're obviously better in Europe. And I think probably Barcelona are also better. And then the response was, well, we played Bayern Munich in the group stages and beat them.
True,
okay.
They did.
So when are we picking and choosing when the head-to-head record matters? Because it doesn't matter in the City head-to-head where on aggregate, it doesn't look very favorable.
But they won the Premier League over City, Eddie. So
they did.
That supersedes that. And then it goes head to head.
Okay. I don't know all the tiebreaker rules. This is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I understand this is a difficult position for me to take. If Arsenal win the Champions League and have won the Champions League and the Premier League, it's kind of hard for me to say, I don't think they're the best team in England. I don't think they're the best team in Europe. I understand that. But I hold the right to not use titles as default indication of best team at all times. In the same way that I then asked do you think PSG are the best team in Europe? No. Will they be the best team in Europe if they win the Champions League? No. So back-to-back Champions League winners, plus winning their domestic title, not the best team in Europe. No. Okay, so you're also willing to not view titles as being the deciding factor. Which is, again, it's okay. There's no right answer to this because, unfortunately, we don't live in. We can't just go and simulate 1,000 matches and.
I mean, there kind of is a right answer. Isn't the Champions League kind of supposed to answer that question?
It is, I think originally in concept, yes, but you can't look at the path that Arsenal have had to the final and feel like they've really proven themselves. Like beating Sporting, beating Atletico Madrid, scraping by Atletico Madrid, also, let's say. If they'd emphatically beaten Atletico Madrid, which I know they did in the group stages, but they didn't do in the knockout stages, that would be different. Scraped by Sporting, scraped by Atletico Madrid. Who'd they play in the round prior to that? Bayer Leverkusen, was it?
No, but wasn't it Bodo Glimt?
Oh, yeah, it was. uh, you you can't say that that was the murderer's row of European challengers, like, whereas PSG can at least say, well, we kind of had to go head to head. Like PSG, if they win the Champions League, will say, we knocked out the German champions, we knocked out the English champions. They can kind of feel like, who else do you want us to beat?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think
But
Arsenal
if
can make that
Arsenal beat
argument.
the French champions who knocked off the German champions, then aren't they the true champions of Europe?
I mean, they're the true champions. I'm not denying they are are they the best team though? It's like, I think what you've just said there is really apt because it's like a world title belt in boxing. And I'll use myself just so that this becomes even more laughable. But if I just fought some
Floyd
bout,
Mayweather.
no,
Just say Floyd Mayweather.
no, because I'm going to choose someone. If I fought, like someone who holds, if I fought, Tyson Fury when he was held a couple of the world title belts, and so yeah, I don't automatically become a better boxer than everyone who Tyson Fury has beaten. Like that's not, we conceptually in boxing don't think that way. That you now need to fight those people. I mean, that's sort of how the boxing mentality works of like, okay, now you've beaten them. There probably needs to be a rematch because if it was a upset, then probably you just got lucky. And 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. You have the rematch, you get the shit kicked out of you, and we never hear from you again. Or even if you then can survive the rematch, now you need to go and prove yourself against everyone else that that person beat on their way to the kind of top of the mountain. And
It's tough to do in a bracket, though.
I'm not, and again, like this is the thing is I don't think the Premier League a bit more is trying to determine the best team in England because it's 38 matches. It's over the course of 9 months. It tests you a lot more completely than the Champions League does. I don't think even the staunchest Champions League defender or fanboy would say that the Champions League's goal is to determine the best team in Europe. It's not designed in the way to do that.
Yeah. But I don't know if you can ever design anything that does
You
that.
can. No. I'm not. And again, I'm not criticizing either the
But then
formats
how are we
or
gonna know?
just have to listen to me. It's ultimately it's just gonna say I get the decree of, you know, but yeah. And this is an argument. Whilst I say listen to me, someone can come up, as I said, if Arsenal win the Champions League and have our Premier League titles, then my argument that City are better than them is a little tougher, for sure. But as I said, the year Chelsea won the Champions League, they weren't the best team in Europe in the most recent time when they beat City in the final. Like, it's silly to think so. I could just poke holes in pretty much every Champions League winner, I would say, in 70% of Champions League winners, probably not the best team in Europe at the time that they won it. And Premier League title winners, I would say 90% of the time, you probably are the best team in England, but you're not always.
But you're usually the most consistent.
Or luckiest, or some combination of the two. And I think with Arsenal, that's the case. And my final note on this,
Consistently
because
lucky.
people have made a huge deal out of the fact that Arsenal are on course to be the only team in Premier League history to have neither conceded a penalty nor received a red card. I would like to bet almost anything in the world
Well,
that they either.
that's easy. That's easy to do when you get every call.
No, exactly. But it's impossible to do without having had the rub of the green. Like, I don't care what any Arsenal supporter can say. There is no way to play 37 matches of a competitive league and not have a player sent off or give away a penalty unless you've consistently been on the receiving end of some favorable decisions. I would bet almost anything I have that they either get a player sent off or give away a penalty on Sunday. Just like it's how, and we've discussed it before, Bill Belichick in sort of garbage time of games would run plays that he normally wouldn't run just so that he
Yeah.
could mix up the analytics. I think the Premier League referees are going to go just give away a penalty or get an Arsenal player sent off, preferably both, so that this statistic won't stand. And so that come next year, you'd be like, oh no, Arsenal actually 3 players sent off and 4 penalties given away. Turns out they were all in the final 15 minutes of the last match of the season when they'd already been they'd already been crowned Premier League title winners. But still, it averaged out over the course of 38 matches. It was pretty normal.
Yeah. That would be that would be right on brand for them.
Yeah. Now I'll wrap it up. I'll try and get it all out of the anti-Arsenal ranting.
Only
Try and get it
15 minutes. This is a quick wrap up.
Yeah. Again, I don't begrudge them their success, and having not won for 22 years, I understand significant. If you're a lifelong Arsenal supporter, that's a long time to go. And certainly if you're our age, you would have grown up in an era where you probably would have expected Arsenal to then be, from the late 90s to the mid 2000s. That experience, I think, would have put you in a mindset where Arsenal were going to be kind of consistently winning things, and so that you weren't going to have a long drought period. It's not long enough, though. This isn't like the Boston Red Sox, sort of breaking through the curse. Like, I remember when Arsenal last won the Premier League. I'm not that old. So it's not long enough that they're making a little bit too big of a deal at about how long it's been, for starters. And then also the likes, you kind of had Saka, the video came out of him with the trophy that they're going to light up to show, another Premier League title won. And him saying, people laughed at us, people doubted us. Honestly, most people didn't care over the course of the last 20 odd years about how Arsenal were doing. You're not this team that most people think about that much. And the only reason people laughed is because all of the Arsenal supporters, staff, and players tried to convince us that they were title contenders when they weren't, and you spent billions of pounds to finally win something. That's the only reason why anyone has at any moment in time laughed or jeered along the way. It's entirely your own doing. And that's the other thing. It's just have a bit of perspective from that front. And the Erling Haaland stay humble lines need to still be echoing through the minds of Arsenal players. I saw Lewis Skelly, I sent this in a group chat to former co-host Sam and stuff. There was Lewis Skelly doing this really cringy celebration where he said, "Oh, there's about bottling it," and it's him holding a bottle of champagne. The nicest thing about that is it reminded me that even in victory, Arsenal could still be kind of unlikable and cringy. It also reminded me of who Lewis Skelly was, because I'd completely forgotten that he existed. But I remember 18 months ago, it was him doing the Haaland celebration after he scored, and Arsenal supporters telling us that he was the future of England's
Yeah.
fullbacks. Pretty sure he's not going to be in the World Cup squad this summer. No, he's 19 years old or whatever. He might go on to have a great season, a great career. But in
Probably
true
ruined some
Arsenal,
fantasy drafts.
probably. But in true Arsenal fashion, he was anointed well before he deserved to be. And that's all. But I hope he enjoys his Premier League title. I'm sure he will. But I have a question for you on the back of it. Because obviously, not for the first time, the Premier League title was decided whilst Arsenal weren't playing. If you were a player, would you rather have had it, let's say not go down to the wire with the pressure of that, but would you rather have Arsenal were playing last
Flip
night?
the games. Just flip the
Yes.
games.
They win.
100%.
You'd rather
Yeah.
on the field win it versus watch it.
Of course. Yeah,
And
of course. I
and
mean, because
as a
at least that
supporter,
way.
same?
Yeah, I think so because it's a lot more satisfying, even though it's technically not something you did that won it because it's City didn't do something that ultimately gave it to you to win, I still think it's a better feeling. It feels like you've accomplished it. Like what you just did there was like the stamp on the overall title and victory. I think for sure. Because like I'm sure it is kind of fun watching it because you can probably just everyone probably like hanging out together and you can kind of have fun watching the city match together and probably like kind of commentating and things like that. But ultimately, I think you want to be out there performing the sport and then, have the chance to say like, all right, we've done it, celebrate right there on the pitch, on the field, on the court, whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought as a fan, it's a disappointing way to win the title because not only it's not as celebratory because you're wanting another team to fail, and also it's just a very negative space to be in
Yeah.
to then shift into celebration. As a player, maybe it's more fun. Maybe you're with your teammates watching the match, you can kind of start to get the sense of, as you would have done last night with 10, 15 minutes to go, like, I think it's going to happen. Like, I don't think City are scoring 2 goals here. And then you just get a really good party that starts immediately. And I mean, there were obviously videos of Arsenal players at 5 a.m. outside the Emirates. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. In other Premier League news, though, obviously City lost last night. And it appears Pep Guardiola is on his way out in a very confusing sequence of events because heading into the FA Cup final, he was asked point blank at his press conference, would this be the last time that he was managing Manchester City at Wembley? He very adamantly said, no, of course not, and then kind of ended the press conference, got up and left. That seemed to put an end to the conversation that he was leaving this summer. And then within 48 hours, it was all but confirmed that he was gone and that Maresca would be the next Manchester City manager. Kind of weird. It does lead to suspicions that all of the penalties that Manchester City are potentially facing, that something might be coming and that Guardiola is aware of this fact. I also, going into last night, I kind of knew that City were going to slip up just based on the fact that Guardiola had kind of announced that he was going to go. And I know you could kind of think of that two ways, that either that would be an extra motivation for the players of like, we love this coach. Let's do it for the Gipper, like let's make sure he doesn't go out on a low.
Oh,
But
stupid Gipper.
yeah, but I think it's more likely that you just think, fuck, it's all over. He knows it's over. We're screwed either way. Let's not, will we really have our A game tonight?
So, in regards to that, do you think this is the beginning of the end for City? Let's say even without potential fines and
Yeah, yeah.
issues and things like that.
No, I actually think, because again, speaking to our mutual friend George when we were talking about this, who he thinks this is the start of an Arsenal dynasty. He thinks everyone else is weak and that Arsenal are poised to run off now 5 Premier League titles and kind of be a constant feature in the semifinals or finals of the Champions League. I feel like if I'm an Arsenal supporter, it feels there's kind of ominous for a couple of reasons. I think you can poke holes. I still think Arsenal need to address a lot of weak points within their squad, certainly in the attacking sense. It would worry me as an Arsenal supporter. Had Guardiola hung around, you might have thought that he feels like this squad, like, yes, they're going to lose Bernardo Silva and John Stones is leaving, and there's going to be some sort of turnover within that. But maybe he felt like the younger players were going to really step up and that he had the core components there. The fact that there is going to be a new manager in place, you have to assume that that's going to come with investment to allow him to shape his squad. So that would worry me. That actually, regardless of how you feel about City, they're definitely not far behind Arsenal. And so the onus is now going to be on Arsenal to keep moving forward at a rate that's a faster rate than what City do. I'm going to annoy Ollie here and other Chelsea supporters who listen to this. I'd be a bit worried about Chelsea because, yeah, they're miles off it based on this season. But the appointment of Alonso And the fact that he's manager, not coach, the promises that must have been made to Alonso to bring him in, given the status he holds within European football, and the fact that really, I think almost any job he's certainly interviewing for, but he's a strong candidate for, there must have been some big promises made to Alonso to get him to go to Stamford Bridge. And so I think Chelsea, they've spent terribly so far, but if they just have one summer where they start to spend quite well, and with the pull factor of Alonso being there, I think they'll be better. And it's hard to ignore what United have kind of, I say quietly putting together. We don't talk about them much on the podcast, but like they're not that far behind from a
No.
points perspective. And we've seen in recent seasons, they are spending money. You'd have to expect they'll spend more money this summer. Okay,
Yeah.
they're losing Casemiro, but fundamentally, most of their squad will still be intact and is actually quite young. So, and look, Liverpool, will they spend money again after how much money they spent last summer and how catastrophically poorly it went? Maybe not. But you also have to think that Liverpool cannot have as bad of a season next season as they had this season. This was their sort of season from hell, injuries, poor play, everything, and that they're going to improve a little bit. So all of that means like Arsenal have won the title at a moment in time where I feel like the chances of them cementing their position at the top of the pile is maybe the toughest it's been for a long, long time. But again, I know Arsenal supporters will be very dismissive of that argument.
Do they win again in the next 4 years?
The Premier League title?
Yeah.
I have to see what they do this summer. My gut tells me no, if I'm being honest. But I have to see. If they bring in a real goal scorer, until they have, I just can't believe that a team that's relying on Kai Havertz to be the like big game, lead the
And
line forward
corners.
scoring goals. Yeah, I just can't believe that that's a team that's going to consistently beat other good. And I actually, because of that landscape that I'm describing, once you start to think that the Premier League might become kind of top heavy, and that's without even speaking of the likes of Aston Villa, who are, extremely well run and difficult to beat. I don't think they're going to compete for the title, but they're going to be competing for the top four. The consistency side of things is going to be tougher to deliver if you can't actually be brilliant as part of that. So if you start to think that there'll be 5 or 6 really good teams at the top of the Premier League, do I have confidence that City can play 10 really hard Arsenal can play 10 really hard matches in the season and win 6 of them? I don't. And so that's going to be the issue is you're not going to be able to get by on hoping that the other teams slip up against opponents that they shouldn't, and you're not going to be able to get by on these sort of unspectacular grinding out 1-0 wins against Burnley. Like you're going to actually have to be able to go to Stamford Bridge and outplay Chelsea when they're in form. You're going to have to go and outplay Aston Villa when they're in form. And that's going to be I don't have the confidence either in Arteta and the style of play that he has with Arsenal or who their team is at the moment.
Yeah.
But good news is it's the last time we have to speak about them. Well, we've got the fucking Champions League final. But other than that.
And the parade. Are we going to live stream from the parade?
No. No. But yeah. In other footballing news, we obviously last episode spoke about Southampton and the Spygate scandal that was engulfing the championship. The decision was made that Southampton were kicked out of the playoffs. And so Middlesbrough were reinstated. So the playoff final will go ahead as planned, but with Middlesbrough playing in it instead of Southampton. Southampton will also face a 4-point deduction for next season, which is not a super significant point deduction, I have to say. It's big enough that it maybe makes it hard to be top 2. But other than that, it's not too big of a thing.
I mean, how much are you going to dock for a dork with an iPhone behind a tree?
Given the fact that they admitted that they did it multiple times this season with their stretching back to December, which probably means they did it on a consistent basis. I think you should have been looking at a 10-point deduction. But I'm also torn in that Southampton needed to be punished, but at the same time, I don't know if Middlesbrough needed to be rewarded. Like, this is a big win for Middlesbrough. They got outplayed in the playoff semifinal and now find themselves in the
Yeah.
playoff final. Like, at the same time, Hull didn't deserve to be rewarded in the sense that they need to play somebody. So there's no perfect solution to this problem because to appropriately punish Southampton, you kind of have to reward either one of those teams, and it doesn't feel
I
just.
I mean, I heard the Middlesbrough, HR people were on hold with Jet to Holiday for, like, 6 hours trying to get their players back. Trying to get their flights changed.
But the other issue is Southampton may get sued by their own players. So there are rumors that legal proceedings will be brought by Southampton's own players who now feel as if the club has let them down in terms of future income that they should have earned, either based on promotion bonuses, playoff bonuses, and then expected salary increases on playing in the Premier League next season. So this may continue to get worse for Southampton in that I'm sure there's going to be some players who leave who otherwise would not have. You know, people who, if they just played in the playoff final and had lost, would have said, let's give it a go again. Now are going to feel as if they were betrayed by the club. And then on top of it, too, they may end up paying out millions of pounds to some of these players
Yeah.
because they're able to bring a credible case that the club has sort of robbed them of future earnings. Feels like a complicated one, but you never know.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy result. I mean, and I agree with you. I think Middlesbrough have to feel pretty lucky. Uh, yeah, I don't you kinda have to. I don't know though, because if you're the English Football League, right, you kinda have to do that because you don't want it to just be a walkover.
You do, and I
You
do.
want a match, right? You want the excitement, you want the thrill, and I mean, obviously, financially, you want it as well, but even regardless of the financial impacts, I think you don't ever wanna see a walkover win or something like that. Like, you want that excitement and that fun and just the thrill of the playoffs, and the potential of being promoted.
No, you do. And look, if I were a Middlesbrough supporter, this is like an unbelievable win to go from the disappointment of losing in the playoff semifinal to suddenly being one match away from the Premier League. Like, I mean, that's a huge win, but it's not deserved. They lost. Southampton were cheating, but Middlesbrough lost fair and square. I don't think that.
But how can you lose fair and square if you were being cheated?
No, but I don't think they were being cheated. I think Southampton were breaking the rules. You can't convince me that that little dweeb with with an iPhone was was gaining valuable insights that was gonna help Southampton win a football match. Like, I
Well,
don't even
but then why is he doing it?
I don't know, people do stupid things all the time, and like, I've watched employers who I work for do things where you think, "This is insane," and sometimes even, "This is an insane level of risk for very little reward." But I don't understand knowing what the starting 11 was going to be, is that a huge advantage? I don't think so. Is it hard to predict what it would have been anyway? No. Seeing set piece routines or other things, is that, like, really changing it? I No. I mean, the position I put in is, like, if, like, Blackburn were going to play a match tomorrow, and then I got told, "Good news, we know their starting lineup, and we also know a few of their set piece routines." I go, Yeah, okay. That doesn't change in any way whatsoever how confident I feel about Blackburn's ability to win that match. This isn't the NFL. This isn't like we saw their plays. Like, we're gonna actually know that when they put that man in motion, that this is gonna happen, or that when they line up and with this look, this is what they're gonna do. Or like, you can actually, the original Spygate. Yeah, there's really valuable information to be gained from learning signs or tells or play sequences or whatever it is. Or say in baseball with the Houston Astros and their cheating scandal. Yeah, if you're using unfair ways to try and tell hitters what pitch is likely to come, there's a huge benefit to come from that. This, I just kinda don't get it. Like, honestly, I would love actually Southampton to come out and explain what they were even doing. Like, honestly, like, that would be an interesting thing to understand.
Yeah, I do. I completely understand what you're saying. There's not like, what are you really getting out of filming the training session that you're not already going to see in all of their game footage, right? Because again,
Yeah.
like it's not like the NFL where you can drastically change your plays and formations from week to week. Like you're going to have a general same theme of what you're trying to do, what you're attempting to do, and maybe you have some starting 11 tweaks, but you're not going into, especially a playoff match. You're not going into a playoff match with a completely revamped,
No.
renewed starting 11 and idea and formation
You've
and everything like
they
that. That'd
they've
be
already
insane.
they've already played each other twice this season, so you'd have a good sense of yeah, I mean, and just again, in the old days, I could maybe get it. But now you can use from various sources, you can gather all the data you need to know. And again, we've seen the worst side of that, I think, in having Rudy Gestad on the podcast and him talking about the way they use data for recruitment, but also that's influencing how they're preparing for their opponents because they are just breaking down data of like, we need to get the ball into these areas or whatever. What is a guy filming with an iPhone? What insights? Because also we had to think it's not gonna be good footage, even with the nicest, most modern iPhone. You're it's not some
and,
aerial
and
it's not a
ground
drone.
level and
Yeah,
ground level.
it's not a drone. If they'd been, "Oh, they're flying drones overhead," and they were really starting to be able to map out, sort of positions that players were occupying on pitches or how narrow they were or how wide they were, maybe I get it. But this is just like some guy who would have been zooming in going like, "Oh, from corners, it looks like they like to have they front load they like heavy on the front post." Okay.
He would have been better off filming like the physio session and seeing like where their injuries are. Like, oh, so and so looks like his left ankle is still a little swollen. We can attack that. Get him out of the game.
And same just like just do it again, a drone would have been possibly undetectable and in the very
That I'm,
least
I'm sure that
un
dork can fly a drone.
yeah, well, he looks like it, but, undetectable and certainly uncatchable. Like, you could have been worst case scenario, we don't and this is the thing that also puzzles me. They had I think he was an intern, but they had an employee doing it. You think you could have just gone on I think Craigslist doesn't really exist anymore, but you could have just gone onto Craigslist and
It's
said,
just such a shame it doesn't. As a side note, I actually said that last week.
"Okay, don't wanna know what you were hoping it existed for," but but Craigs you could have gotten onto something like Craigslist and said, "Hey, we're gonna pay you £200. We want you to, like, get some footage of the Middlesbrough training session," and just make up, "We work for the Daily Mail, and we're just this is some stupid story we're running, but don't get
Yeah.
caught." Like, the fact it's poorly planned, poorly executed, and in a sense for what seems like absolutely no reason, and then they received an incredibly both just but harsh punishment.
Speaking of Craigslist, you know what my favorite Craigslist thing is? There was this Conan O'Brien sketch where they got a car off Craigslist and Kevin Hart and Ice Cube were in the back of the car. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's so funny.
Oh my god. Oh dear.
I
I
can legit make this like the Paul Rudd running joke when he actually went to Conan
yeah, that's
and would
without
put
the
on that
payoff.
face.
The only thing that would amuse me is if at some point in the future we could get either Conan O'Brien or Kevin Hart on the podcast
Or
and
Ice
all
Cube.
you or Ice Cube, and all you wanted to do was speak about that one sketch. Like no other element within their career, nothing. Just like, yeah, yeah, that's really interesting, Conan. But that time you bought that car and you were driving it around, like that's anyway. So yeah, that wraps up. I mean, obviously the only other thing up for grabs in the Premier League heading into the final day is the relegation battle. Spurs
Quite a
lost to
battle.
Chelsea last night, so the situation's really clear. West Ham, in order to stay up, need to win, and Spurs need to lose. With the draw, it's impossible to imagine that West Ham could overturn the goal difference unless West Ham are about to go out and win 20-0. So it's that. And you'd say it's possible West Ham have the slightly easier fixture, but
Yeah.
neither of the one of them are playing a super winnable or super losable match. So that's the only thing to watch. I did have the misfortune.
Imagine being a Spurs fan at the beginning of the year saying, "Hey, your season's going to come down to the last match," and and having it be the relegation and not for the title. That kind of
Well,
sucks.
they did finish 18th last season.
I
So
know it's true.
yeah, I think that based on what we saw from them last year, was more to be expected than them challenging at the top. But yeah. Any other sports related topics to discuss?
No, not really. Obviously, NHL and NBA playoffs still ongoing. Haven't
Yeah,
watched much NBA.
I watched a little. I watched the
Cavs blew a big lead last night, right?
Cavs blew a big lead, and I did watch the actual because I woke up on was that Monday morning? I can't even track it now. Or was it Tuesday morning? Tuesday
Tuesday.
morning. And I saw the end of the fourth quarter and the overtime of the Spurs Thunder game. And it was super fun to watch. And Wembanyama is crazy. I mean, to see a whatever he is, 7'7" or whatever giant he is, pulling up from 35, like shooting like Steph Curry to tie the game that's in overtime. You can like it's overused to say that we've never seen anything like it before, but we literally have never seen anything like him before.
It's true. And in the NHL, the Montreal Canadiens won Game 7 in overtime to move on. So, uh, a little bit of a different scenario here, having a Canadian team reach the Final Four of the NHL, which is good for the NHL to have a Canadian team in it. Um, I think it keeps more people engaged, but we'll see how that goes. I don't think they'll move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, I think they're going to get blown out, but we'll see.
Because they're playing the Hurricanes, and then on the other side, it's Colorado, Vegas.
I think it's going to be Colorado Hurricanes.
It does feel weird to me that the Golden Knights have so quickly become a regular fixture. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It kind of hurts the NHL to a degree. Like from my perspective, it's a sort of anti-expansion because you have
Well,
these sort of
Utah aren't, though.
historic, give them time. But you know what I mean, though? Like you have these historic teams that you do want to see again. Obviously, if you're a Vegas fan, this is amazing. But if you're, if you're a fan of the Red Wings and you're wondering why this team that didn't exist 10 years ago is suddenly in the latter stages of the playoffs every year.
You got to look within, Eddie. You only have yourself to blame.
Sure. But I don't know. It would annoy and frustrate me if the Premier League was suddenly being won by, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a fictional place to stick a team, but the Wandsworth Warriors were all of a sudden featuring, oh, they won the Premier League again.
AFC.
Yes, if Ted Lasso had come to life, or even if just Wrexham suddenly find themselves competing at the top end of the Premier League, that will be enough for me too.
So I went to the doctor this week. We discussed this off podcast to establish a primary care doctor here in Minneapolis, and so a lot of it was just like introduction. The doctor asks a bunch of questions, gets to know you a little bit, and things like that, and kind of just sets things up for normally what would be this I'd have to do next and in 5 years and blah blah. So we were chatting. And, he looked, he goes, "Oh, wow, I see you just turned 40. He's like, "Oh, congrats." He's, I hope you don't go through like one of those like midlife crisis or anything. Like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, it doesn't really bother me much. He's like, "Yeah, me too." He's like, when I turned 40, all my friends were saying, like, "Oh man, like, are you going through it now?" Blah, blah, blah. Like, and he's like, and I kind of thought like, no, like I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, I guess, for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. And I went to it. I was like, yeah, but you're a doctor. Like, you're doing something good and like for society, and that also has like a good income and a salary. It's not like it's not
And
like
a
you're
clear
working part time at Target. Like,
and a clear career. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
you would feel like I know that obviously there's promotions or things that a doctor may want in some ways, but fundamentally, you're not sort of like, "What will I be doing when I am 60? Like, what
Yeah.
happens if I don't get the big promotion?"
Yeah, it was kind of funny. It was like, yeah, I guess I came to the realization I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm okay with it, and that's what I'm gonna do. I was just like,
But see, this is where you should have asked him, did you ask him, "What were you doing when you were 40?" Because that might have been the big
that's
reveal.
true.
He would have been like, "I was a garbage man."
That's
It's
true.
like,
I assumed he was a doctor. When I made the joke back, I was like, yeah, but you're a doctor. Like, I'd assumed he was a doctor at 40. Who knows? That's
now
true.
here's a real question. When you go to the doctor, do you sign yourself in as Dr. Duca?
No, I don't sign in though either.
Oh, but you know what I mean? Is your
No, I don't put
profile
doctor on my name. No,
you know, you don't wanna run the
no,
risk? You don't want an MD
no.
to call you out for
No, but I do then get the, like, when they ask what I do and I tell them what I do, I get that little, like, boost in, I think, a little bit in respect, but then also in the, like, I don't need to talk to you like you're a 4-year-old about what's going on with you, which is really, really nice. So that always helps. Like, just saying, like, I'm in physiology. They're like, "Oh, then you understand, like, kinda what's going on." Like, Okay, cool, cool." 'Cause, like, when they don't and they're like, "So I think what happened is your blood, that's the red stuff that's running through your body." It's like, "Alright, come on."
I've never had a doctor talk to me that way. Yeah. So and you had a big height update. Your
Big
height has
height
been
update,
your
5'11 and a half
with shoes on.
with flat-heeled shoes on.
They're not flat heel. Don't even try this. They're sneakers. You're wearing sneakers.
They're
That's an
ha
inch.
No, the official height was 5'11 and 5/8. I will say the 5/8 is the shoe.
No way. No way. I mean, we can solve this. We're gonna measure the shoes, but,
I I choose not to be measured.
and it's insane. I haven't had my height measured. I mean, I guess every once in a while when you do the annual checkup that you have to do for work, sometimes they measure my height. It's kinda hit or miss. Like, some doctors insist on it, some don't. Most of the
Yeah.
time, they just assume that at this age, I'm neither growing nor shrinking,
Yeah.
so they don't do it much, but every once in a while, they're just kind of thorough with going through the checklist, so they'll do it. Every time, they've made me take my shoes off.
Oh, they don't care at all here about anything. Like, they were like, "Hop on the scale," and I was like, I'm in a coat and jeans and pants." They're like, take off whatever you want. It doesn't matter." And I was like, "It doesn't?" Like, if I go to the doctor's and it says I weigh 230, but then I take all my shit and I'm 215, that's not a significant difference? Like, although I don't think my coat weighs 15 pounds, but, like, I think it's literally just to put in the thing. I guess at the end of the day, if you weigh 330 pounds or you weigh 325 pounds, it's still overweight. So
But at that point,
it's
they
not it's
may
not like
though
I'm the NFL combine.
no, but at that point, if they're putting in such little effort, they may as well just ask you, "How tall are you and what do you weigh?"
So, well, sometimes they do.
I know, but do you see what
I
I
go to
mean?
some
If
doctors and they just ask.
because then the question is like how big would your heel have to have been before he said, "I think you should take those off?" Or is he or the other reverse where the only way I could see this making sense is if he you measured your height, but then said, "Looks like those shoes add an inch. We're knocking an inch off your height." But other than that, got a good positive checkup.
Great.
I need to give you an update actually, because obviously we spoke about the Whoop versus Apple Watch when I was wearing that,
Yeah.
and then I went down the Apple Watch path, and then not a sponsor, but I chose to try and get a lot of the Whoop functionality that's missing from the Apple Watch. I paid for an app called Bevel. It's
So
it's
now you're
it's
doing the same thing Whoop would do, is like you're paying for service.
for a fraction of the cost. It's
Okay.
$55 a year, I think I paid. So
Okay.
it's on a different scale to
We also
and you
pay for an
can
Apple Watch.
One payment, though, not a subscription.
Oh, okay. So
Well, 1 year of the Apple Watch plus the Bevel is the cost of 1 year subscription to
you know how
the
long your
to
Apple Watch is
Whoop.
gonna last? 13 months exactly, and it's gonna break, just like
That
Apple
would
does with all their products.
but do you know what? 13 months? That would represent value for money. If you'd said if you'd said 11, then that would be an issue. But anyway, so Bevel now, they tried there's lots of the functionalities I do not use. Overall, I love the app in terms of tracking my workouts and kinda giving me a sense. It does some sleep monitoring. I don't care too much about that, but it's still there. Heart rate, like all the kind of,
And the
like
Apple
basic.
Watch doesn't do this on its own?
It does, but Bevel does it in a little bit more detail, and the UX within the app is a little bit nicer.
Okay. I don't know what
And
UX means, but okay.
user experience.
Oh, oh, so fuck me. Sorry.
So sorry, I didn't know I was your doctor, and I needed to talk to you
Wow.
like you're a 3-year-old. That
Wow.
the app it's that thing you open when you're on your phone,
Okay.
and you
So
look at that, and
app good.
yeah, app good, easy use, me enjoy.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, so it's quite user friendly. The user experience is spot on. Okay, good.
Yeah. I won't throw UI in there and go user interface. I don't wanna confuse everything too much. But so, it does a little bit better job of helping me to visualize some of that data, and just overall, I think is kinda nicer. And there's a big AI component to it. If you want to, like, you can take a picture of all the food you eat, and it calculates how many calories and stuff like that. I'm never
Yeah.
gonna do that.
I
And
I would only do that to see how accurate it is. Like
yeah,
I'm always interested in how accurate those actually are.
it claims, obviously this is mostly their stuff, but there are obviously doctors vouching for and nutritionists vouching for the quality of it. But I do agree with you. Like, you can't know. It's like, oh, you think my rice and chicken looks pretty good? Little do you know, I poured 700 grams of sugar on top of the rice.
Yeah.
Like this sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Like how does it know? Like how
But
does it but no, like even like more simple, how does it know you didn't put 2 tablespoons of butter in your rice?
or olive oil, and what's the impact
Yeah.
of that? How many extra calories are you getting from those
Yeah.
things? Yeah, but anyway, it does stuff like that, but it has just rolled out the biological age, which is not something that either the
Oh,
Apple Watch
yeah.
or Bevel previously had. So I'll let you take a guess at what it thinks right now my biological age is. I'll let you know that it says this because it also gives you a confidence as to how confident it feels in the prediction. So it has
Okay.
52% confidence. In order for it to be more confident, it would want me to I need to take a blood test and give it 9 biomarkers, and it would also like me to record my food, which obviously I'm never gonna do. The blood test, maybe the next time I have a blood test, I'll upload it. Um, but it feels pretty confident on my sleep, my activity, my fitness, and okay on my lifestyle.
I'm gonna
So
say it thinks you're 48 years old. How's that UE?
you so so for listeners, so that they know, I
I'm gonna
am
say I'm gonna
I'm
say it says you're 36.
oh, no, a real swing there. So I'm 38.9 according to the app, because it's
Okay.
10 decimal places, and I'm turning 39 in a month.
Nice.
It has me currently at 38.1.
Oh, so it's like spot on.
It's pretty close, yeah. Now here's the thing is, I don't know, because it only has 50% confidence, and because I'm not giving it my biomarkers and I'm not giving it my food intake, I don't know if it's just basically gonna say, this is the thing I don't know. Is it just gonna go plus or minus like 1.5 years either side, basically
Yeah.
depending, and it fluctuates, and not day to day, but it's been rolled out for a couple weeks, and when I don't sleep as much, my biological age increases pretty rapidly.
Do I know what mine is? You wanna take a
The
guess?
last the last time you told me, I think you were something like 2 years under your actual age.
Oh, wow. This guy's getting younger by the day because it says I'm 34.9.
Okay. It doesn't.
So 5.1 years younger than my actual age. At this rate, when I'm 70, it's gonna tell me I'm 20.
But here's, not to bring your personal health into this, but like, does it know you've had multiple blood clots? Like,
Irrelevant.
heck, you're doing
Completely
great.
irrelevant.
Like, I mean, I'd love to stick like a whoop on a guy in a coma, and they just be like, this guy is, I'm knocking it out of the
Sleep
park.
score through the roof.
He's so well rested,
He gets his brain activity down to 0.
primed. Like the little update, it'd be like, after that 17-year good rest, your body is primed and ready to take on the challenges of today.
I mean, what is legitimately funny though is according to let me pull up the so what it'll do is it'll actually show you like over time how it's been shifted. So I am legitimately getting younger. The last 6 months I started at 36 no, it's at 37.4 was my whoop age in December. And in May, it's now 34.9. So I've gone down almost 3 years.
So this does give me some, even though they've only rolled this feature out, obviously you can use all of the data that it had from the past, so I can look back and see since, um, for the last few months how that's fluctuated. I can see that the Super Bowl week was not good for me. My the Super Bowl aged me like 5 years according to this.
What day was the Super Bowl?
Around the 10th of February or something, wasn't it? Something like that.
No, mine didn't do anything.
It was the no, the 20 yeah, the 10th of February.
Mine went up on Thanksgiving. My
Oh,
age my age got worse on Thanksgiving, and then it looks like it got worse on Christmas break. So pretty much holidays ruin your body is what the take home here
which
is.
which makes sense, right? Because you're drinking more, maybe sleeping less, and then on top of it, probably exercising less, which is, it puts a big, at
Yeah.
least from this, I can see there's a big emphasis put on activity and how that impacts.
That's the main driver for my age score
Yeah.
is like
Which is
the amount of time in like heart rate zones.
which again is kind of silly, sort of, right? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I'd love to put in my advanced labs and see what it says. Once it sees my blood pressure, it's gonna be like 34, more like 24.
Wasn't your blood pressure just like 10/7?
What do you mean?
Oh, because you're American, so you do the full, like, 106/72
I
or
think it was like
whatever.
107 over 60 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. England, they tend to just do it as a, like, a round number.
Oh, move it up. Okay, I see what you're
So,
saying.
like, 10/7 is 100 and something over 70 something.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'll have to keep that in mind whenever I'm watching my English quiz shows.
Yes.
You know
Yeah,
what?
that and
I bursted my bubble last week and found out sadly that I will never be able to be on Tipping Point
why?
because you have to be a citizen.
Do you?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Well,
What do we do? Lie? What's the
yeah. Yeah. No, you had to be, yeah. You have to be a resident, I presume.
I think it says citizen is actually I think what it said.
That seems outrageous to me, that it's like you could be Italian, but legally resident in the UK. They're not letting you go on Tipping Point. I didn't know that Tipping Point was some like far right agenda. Like, this is a quiz show for Brits and Brits only.
Ben Shepherd is very out of it.
Yeah. He's like, I will host this show, but only as long as no fucking foreigner
You
ever
must
wins
be
a
18
cent.
years old. Oh, okay, you're right. Permanent legal resident.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know what
that's doable.
permanent legal resident means.
As in, you couldn't be a tourist on a tourist visa and then go and do the game show. So you need to have
Okay.
a permanent visa. So that's doable for you.
I just gotta What, move to the
Get
UK?
get a job in the UK? I mean, where do you think you're gonna be some tourist quiz show participant? Like,
Yes. How much is the UK into, like, the Make-A-Wish like the US is? Do you think that could be a loophole?
I don't even how much is the UK into the US is? Was that the
No,
question?
no, how much is the UK into the Make-A-Wish type of thing like the
Oh,
US is?
I didn't hear the Make-A-Wish bit. I just
Oh.
heard how much is the UK into the US is. Um, I th I think you're a little too old for the Make-A-Wish thing. It would be a bizarre Make-A-Wish, but maybe realistic. I think it's more likely you just lie and say you're a permanent resident and they never verify. That if you just gave an
Or I
address.
just make fake documents?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a great like a YouTube video 5 years from now about the scandal that emerged from Tipping Point when they were defrauded by Frank Duca on his 5-day trip to the UK. But, yeah, I think you could
I
get
was gonna
away with
say,
it.
I could just say I'm Sam. I could say I'm Sam Jones, but the problem is they're gonna say, "Sam Jones, that's the most made up name we've ever heard."
It's way too
Couldn't come up with
exotic.
something more unique?
They would say to Ben Shepherd, they'd go, "Oh, we got contestants coming on. We've got David Smith, we've got Charlie Jones, and we got Sam Jones. Sam Jones. That there no exotic foreigners are coming on my fucking game show. You know, not a chance. I'm letting Samuel Jones and his fancy foreign name come on this game show.
You think you're gonna bring someone on that I've never heard that name before?
Yeah. I don't even believe that's a real person. The combination of those two unusual names paired together, no chance. Anything, anything else?
Not really. I guess we didn't say I did a pickleball tournament last weekend. I don't think we talked about that. Did not go so great. It went okay. We were playing in a division above what we should have been in, and we did okay. We went 2-2, and then lost in the playoffs, but to a team we beat pretty easily in the round robin. I think we kind of just lost the plot a little bit. But I will be playing in singles on Friday tournament in
No one
4-0 and above, and
no one to blame, nowhere
I
to
am
hide.
I am barely a 3. I don't know. It's gonna be rough.
And what's your tactic gonna be?
Uh, just hit the ball and play.
You really thought about it.
Tactics gonna be, I think, hoping my serve is on because that's probably my strongest suit in singles, is I have a really strong serve, and I can actually, at this point, get some people to not be able to get it back over the net. So or they kinda just have to hit it over anyway, and that gives me the nice, like, 3rd shot on them. Other than that, probably just trying to be more athletic than them. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. If you want, I can live feed you. I'll put it up on next to the court and you can watch.
Well, the last time I got this promise, nothing materialized. So I won't hold my breath on the possibility of you figuring out how to FaceTime a pickleball game.
I don't know how good the UX will be.
Oh, just that's okay. I'll forgive you.
I can't figure out the UI, so that's the problem.
Yeah. I haven't had any I've just the only thing I've grown with paddle updates, I played a guy who I lost to. Actually, I played with the same guy, and it wasn't planned in this way. It's just responding to people of different messages. So who was pretty good, but took it very seriously and who beat the 2 of us quite badly with his partner probably 2 weeks ago. And then I played him on Monday night, and we won the first set 6-2, second set 6-1. And then it was time. I mean, the club was shutting down. It was 10 o'clock at night, so it was time to go. He was
Wow.
insistent. He was like, he was making excuses throughout the first 2 sets. I'm a little sick. I'm not playing well. And like really annoying things. So like when we finish, you kind of always say at the end of, because it's unclear if you're going to rotate partners at the end of every set. So when you finish the set, you kind of say, "Oh, well played." I mean, it's just generic compliments, right? And then I said, "Oh, well played. Thanks for the set." And he said, "I haven't even started to play."
Nice. I like
Yeah.
that.
And that was after set 1.
When I
And then
lose 6 matches in a row and the guy says, nice game, I was like, game. I didn't even know we're playing yet.
yeah, the tournament's over, sir. It's time to go home. No, it isn't. I'm waiting to get going. Those were just warm-ups. But yeah, and then lost the second set convincingly, and then third set, honestly, it was like, it's 10 o'clock. I feel like, and he was insistent. He was the security guard here just sits on his phone. He's here for at least another couple of hours. He won't care if we stay late. We stay late all the time.
What a move. I like that
And I was
one.
and I was like, I get that, but I'm kind of respectful of the fact that the club is closing and no one else is here. So it's time to go. So we started playing the third set, and I just wanted to rush through it. So he won the third set, and then he's sort of treated
He
that
was
as
happy to
if,
leave then.
yeah, and I kind of treated that as if like, now you know. It's like, now I know that when I really want to leave, I tend to lose. That's what I've really figured out. But it's very French. The excuses thing, I mean, we've discussed it fairly ad nauseum, but when they're losing, the sunlight's in their eyes, or there's not enough light, or it's too windy, or it's not windy enough. The courts are damp. The courts are too dry. Uh, they've just got a new racket. The racket's too old. They've played too much this week. They haven't played enough this week. They didn't sleep well enough. They slept too long. Like the number of excuses, like from all of them at all times whenever they're losing. And I've literally said to them, I understand why, relatively speaking, France doesn't do that well at sport, because I think all of your mentalities, this is so representative of like, and I said that to one person. He was like, "We're way better at sport than the UK is," and I was like, "Objectively false. Like, it's like we can run through the things that you succeed in or consistently good at, and if we are generous enough to call it the UK to try and match population sizes, you're not gonna do well at all." But
No.
he didn't take that super well.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it.
All right. I guess with that, we'll wrap it up and call it a day and go get ready for the Arsenal celebration.
Sounds good.
Talk to you later.
See ya.
Cheerio.